Tantor Audio, a division of recorded books, presents You and Your Anxious Child. Free your child from fears and worries and create a joyful family life. By Anne-Marie Albano, Ph.D., with Leslie Pepper. Narrated by Coleen Marlo. 1. You and Your Child's Anxiety. Timmy, a 7-year-old boy, came with his parents, John and Linda, to the Columbia University Clinic for Anxiety and Related Disorders, where I am the director. Timmy was a handsome boy with big blue eyes and a mop of curly hair, but his furrowed brow revealed the ever-present worry that preoccupied his mind. He leaned forward in his chair, elbows on his knees, and hands wringing whenever he uttered a word. As the story of Timmy and his parents unfolded, I thought of the classic children's book, Goodnight Moon. On one page there is a drawing of a little bunny in bed, alone in the dark. It's a primal scene in a heartwarming book, but there's also something poignant about seeing the little fellow all alone in a big, big room. Timmy wasn't good at being alone, in the dark or otherwise. He always wanted to be wherever his parents were, and she trailed them around the house like a shadow. More than once, Linda stepped back from the stove or sink and right onto her son, not realizing that he had slipped up quietly behind her and was sitting on the floor. School was a daily battle. Many days, Timmy threw tantrums that caused him to miss the bus, so Linda was chronically late for work. Once at school, Timmy often complained of tummy aches, and although he usually managed to stay through the last bell, other times he begged the nurse to call his mother, who would leave work early to come pick him up. Although Linda only worked part-time hours at the office, while home she often stayed quite busy on her laptop with consulting work. John and Linda thought perhaps Timmy's problems stemmed from her work schedule, and after much deliberation they decided she'd leave her job. If she were home to spend more quality time with Timmy, they thought, the troubles would diminish. But instead, they got worse. Now that Linda was home all the time, Timmy stuck to her like glue. Even when he was in the bathroom, the door was always open. At night, Timmy shared a room with his 4-year-old brother. Yet more nights than not, he sneaked down the hall and climbed into his parents' bed. John and Linda consulted their pediatrician, who told them separation anxiety was normal. Timmy would grow out of it, he said reassuringly, so they resigned themselves to wait for that magical day and make the best of things in the meantime. Then, one weekend, Timmy's parents invited another couple over for a visit. Timmy was so engrossed in playing with the couple's 8-year-old son that he didn't notice when everyone else went down to the basement. When Timmy realized that he couldn't hear his parents' voices, he began to frantically search for them, screaming and crying as he ran from room to room. When he reached the top of the basement stairs, he heard his parents talking below and rushed down toward them. At that same moment, his little brother was making his way up the stairs. In his desperation, Timmy pushed the younger boy, who tumbled backward. Timmy's little brother lay crumpled at the foot of the stairs. Yet even as his parents hurried to help their younger son, Timmy pulled at their sleeves, wailing, "Where were you?" Fortunately, Timmy's brother was fine, but his parents were not. They finally understood that his separation anxiety was not just a normal passing phase, but a serious problem. When I interviewed Timmy, he explained that every time his parents were out of sight, he was terrified that he'd never see them again. And the school bus? He was consumed by fear that the driver would forget he was there. When I pressed for details, he described an imagined scenario in which the driver would drop off all the other kids but skip his house. Then the bus driver will go to the big parking garage and put the bus away and go home, and I'll still be on the bus alone. It will get dark, and no one will know where I am. This is when I thought of the little bunny in bed, alone and scared. Timmy never considered how easy it would be to simply speak up and let the driver know he was there. Nor did he realize how remote the chances were that the driver would park the bus overnight with the students still in it. In his mind, the threat was very real and very frightening. It was just one fear among many that fueled Timmy's anxiety disorder. Classic anxiety, typical parents. Although Linda and John tried everything to help their son, and Linda even quit her job to try to calm her son's fears, we saw in Timmy's case that it did not help the problem and in fact made it even worse. I hear stories like this every day in my office, from the richest to the poorest families, from single moms to two-dad households. Though the specifics may change, the overarching problem is similar with every parent who comes through my doors. Do you remember what it was like to go to sleep at night before you had your children? After a hard day at work, maybe after a night on the town, your head hit the pillow and you slept all night long. A marching band could have played right through your room and you still would have slept, right? But the minute you have a child, that all changes. You probably had a baby monitor in your child's room, but I'll bet you didn't need it. All it took was a little squeak and you'd sit bolt upright in bed, awake and alert. This is the natural instinct that parents have, to protect their children and keep them safe. Your child's cry puts you on high alert in a flash, and you're ready for whatever comes your way. Although Timmy wasn't literally crying in the middle of the night, in a figurative sense, he was. Linda and John heard his cries of distress through his clinging behaviors, and they wanted to rush in and rescue him. As Timmy's anxiety spun more and more out of control, they began to swoop in more and more often, faster and faster, and as you saw from their story, this only intensified the anxiety. Let me say something front and center. Anxiety disorders are not caused by bad parenting. This is a concern I hear over and over from distraught moms and dads. Ironically, however, the very instinct that makes for good parenting, the instinct to protect, may play a key role in perpetuating and deepening your child's anxiety. It's natural for a parent to want to soothe the child who's upset, and in many circumstances that makes good parenting sense. But with an anxiety disorder, a parent's reassurance actually has the opposite effect of what you expect. Instead of soothing the child, the reassurance makes him grow even more anxious, forcing the parent to hold on even tighter. Eventually, they may end up in a vicious cycle, with an overprotective parent feeding the fears of an over-anxious child. It's all too easy to fall into this type of unhealthy pattern. Imagine that your kindergartner comes home from school crying, telling you, "Sasha and Amy wouldn't sit with me today. They were mean. I don't have any friends." Your first instinct is to hug her and tell her you're going to take care of it. You pick up the phone the next day and find out from the teacher what happened. If the problem continues, you may even call the other girl's parents and enlist their help as well. For the child in kindergarten who can't reason well by herself, this may make sense. But what if you continued to do it through first grade, second grade, third grade? What if your daughter is in fifth grade and still relying on you to mend fences for her? When you have a child who tends to get distressed, has difficulty soothing herself, and is anxious and afraid, a certain parenting style evolves. From early on, you're always in comfort, protect, and reassurance mode, and your child never has an opportunity to learn the skills for handling her own friendships, nor does she get a chance to see that she's blowing her fears out of proportion. So those fears remain in her, while you, slowly but surely, cross the line from concerned parent to over-involved. It's a vicious cycle, but also a breakable one. By listening to this book, you can learn how to stop rescuing and instead start empowering your child. One of the main goals I have for you is to help you begin to stop, think, and ask, how much more have I taken on for my child, rather than let her handle the situation herself? Let me tell you something that may not sit well right away. You're not going to always feel, as my niece used to say, that this is a rainbow and unicorn world. You're going to have to sit through the upset and anguish your child is feeling. In order to master anxiety, your child will have to face his fears, which will upset him. But he has to experience this anxiety in order to learn that whatever he's afraid of, it's not as bad as he thinks it is. And while he's learning that, it's going to take all the strength you can summon to watch your child go through it. You're asking him to face the fears he's been running from, probably for years, and we hope the practical tools and insights in this book will provide guidance and support along the way. But when a child faces his fears, what will come out on the other end is a more confident child, one who has overcome his worries instead of fleeing from them, and who now has skills and abilities to manage his own emotions and the challenges of everyday life. When you take a step back and let your child take control, it doesn't make you any less important in his life. In fact, it's made you more important because you've helped him see that he can do it all on his own, and that is something you can all be proud of. A look in the mirror.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?